You ever witness a moment on live television where the room temperature drops, the smiles freeze, and every single person watching, both in the studio and at home, suddenly knows something is very, very wrong? That's exactly what happened the night Lili Reinhart walked onto The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. And the strangest part? No one could explain why. Not immediately, not publicly, not officially, but the energy in that studio. It shifted like a door slamming shut in an empty hallway. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Because Lili didn't come to promote a movie. She didn't come to laugh, joke, or do a playful bit with Jimmy. She came carrying something heavier than a secret. She came carrying a decision to speak. And the moment Meghan Markle's name crossed Jimmy Fallon's lips, the cameras captured something they were never meant to capture. Lili's smile flickering, collapsing, and vanishing altogether as she leaned forward and whispered a sentence that sent a shockwave through NBC headquarters and triggered a chain reaction no one in the room could anticipate. They're not her kids. 7 words. 7 tiny, explosive words. Softly spoken, but powerful enough to make a veteran cameraman stumble back as if he'd been pushed. Tell me something. Have you ever watched someone drop a truth they've been terrified to carry? That was the expression on Lili's face. Not smugness, not theatrics, but relief mixed with fear. The kind of fear a person carries when they've been holding something inside for far too long. But to understand why this moment mattered, why it froze Jimmy Fallon mid-smile, why the audience gasped, and why the network scrambled to shut everything down, you have to go back to the very beginning of the night. Because here's the first twist. Lili was acting strange before she even stepped onto the stage. Witnesses say she kept pacing the hallway, muttering to herself, refusing to sit in her dressing room. She avoided the makeup mirrors, avoided the producers, and according to one crew member, whispered something like, "I can't let them keep doing this." And nobody, not one person, knew what this meant. Not yet. But if you watch the footage closely, there's a moment right before Lili sits down on Jimmy's couch where she pauses. Just for a second. Just long enough to swallow. Just long enough to look straight into the camera with this expression, like she knows what she's about to do will change everything. And here's where the tension sharpens. Why would Lili Reinhart, beloved actress, adored by millions, admired for her honesty, choose this moment, this show, this night to say something about one of the most powerful and controversial public figures on the planet? Why risk her reputation? Why confront a story people whisper but never dare to articulate? Why say the one thing that nearly every newsroom in the world avoids? Because here's the thing that nobody realized until later. Lili didn't just know something. She had seen something. But we're not there yet. Let's stay in that studio for a moment. That exact moment when Jimmy Fallon lightly joked about Hollywood moms and royal babies, and Lili's entire demeanor cracked like porcelain. This wasn't a comedic moment. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't a scripted bit gone wrong. This was a woman deciding she couldn't live with a truth that had been haunting her. Jimmy Fallon, the king of late-night levity, suddenly didn't know where to look. One second he was smiling, and the next his mouth was still open, but the smile inside it had died. Producers backstage started waving their hands. A stage manager made a slicing gesture across his throat. Someone yelled, "Cut to commercial," even though it was live to tape. But Lili didn't stop, and that's what made everyone panic. Because when someone says something shocking under duress, you can dismiss it. But when someone says it calmly, softly, with full awareness, that's when people get scared. Have you noticed how silence hits harder than shouting? The audience had. The staff had. Even Jimmy had. But before anyone could fully process the words, Lili followed with something even more unsettling. Something that made Jimmy raise both hands and lean back as if trying to distance himself from her. "There's proof. I've seen it." Proof. That was the trigger. The word that made 2 NBC executives watching from the control room bolt upright. The word that made one assistant pick up a phone faster than she'd ever moved in her life. The word that would lead to a 48-hour lockdown on the archived footage. Because networks don't hide things unless something inside them is explosive. But the public didn't know that part. Not yet. All the viewers saw was an awkward cut, a sudden segment transition, and Jimmy returning with a slightly too wide smile. The kind of smile someone wears when they're hoping everyone forgets what they just heard. But nobody forgot. Not the studio audience, who walked out whispering. Not the internet, which exploded within minutes. And not Lili Reinhart, who sat quietly backstage afterward, staring at her hands like she'd just set a match to something made of gasoline. But why Lili? Why now? That's the question that kept ricocheting around entertainment circles for days. Because no matter what you believe about Meghan Markle, no matter what you think you know about her children, no matter where you stand, the timing was too precise, too intentional, too emotionally loaded to ignore. And here's where things get even stranger. Lili didn't deny it afterward. She didn't call it a misunderstanding. She didn't blame nerves, exhaustion, or miscommunication. She said nothing. Absolutely nothing. And silence speaks in ways words never can. So what exactly did Lili know? Who told her? What did she see? And why was an actress from Riverdale, of all people, the one carrying a secret deep enough to rattle a royal narrative? We're about to unravel that entire chain. Step by step, moment by moment, revelation by revelation. But before we go forward, you need one more key detail. This wasn't the first time Lili hinted at something. Not publicly, not directly, but years earlier, someone close to her overheard a conversation involving a Hollywood stylist who had once worked for both Meghan and several high-profile actresses. A conversation that didn't fully make sense at the time, but suddenly clicked into place the night of Fallon's show. A comment about timelines. A whisper about inconsistencies. A passing remark about a story that didn't add up. It was nothing then. It is everything now. And this is where the Real story begins. Not with the moment Lili spoke, but with the moment she realized she could no longer stay silent. But before we go deeper into the secrets Lili hinted at, before we unpack the stylist's confession, the Hollywood whispers, or the private party where Meghan allegedly made a slip she couldn't take back, you need to understand the most important thing of all. Lili Reinhart didn't expose anyone on impulse. She exposed someone because something, or someone, pushed her to a breaking point. And what happened after the cameras cut? What NBC tried to bury? What a single backup recording captured? That is where the story turns from shocking to something else entirely. Something darker. Something no one saw coming. Something that made Meghan's team launch an immediate, frantic damage control operation before the footage even left the building. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It didn't take long. Before the audience had even finished clapping for the next segment, a forgettable music performance no one remembers, a flurry of panic erupted behind the scenes. Phones lit up. Executives huddled. One of Fallon's senior producers reportedly went pale and whispered, "We've got a situation." And then the order came. Lock the tape. Archive the segment. Scrub it from all preview feeds. The footage from that specific portion of the episode, where Lili mentions Meghan Markle and utters the phrase, "They're not her kids," was flagged, removed, and immediately placed in what NBC insiders call the vault. A restricted access digital archive typically reserved for technical disasters, legal liabilities, or scandals that threaten powerful people. But here's the problem with trying to erase something in 2025. Someone always has a backup. One of the junior camera operators, someone assigned to B-roll coverage and not part of the main team, had been recording raw angle shots for a behind-the-scenes special. Nothing unusual. Until now. That camera, hidden in plain sight behind one of the decorative plants on the far right side of the set, kept rolling. It captured everything. Lili's body language. Fallon's discomfort. The exact facial change when her voice dropped. Even the subtle shift in the studio lighting as the mood soured. And more importantly, it captured what happened right after the comment. The moment the producers didn't want you to see. When Lili leaned in and said something else. The words are muffled in the backup recording. The mic wasn't meant to catch whispers. But forensic audio specialists, yes, actual experts, later confirmed that she muttered something resembling, "I saw them. They were flown in. That's not a home, it's a stage." Chilling. Even if you don't believe her. Even if you think it's just paranoia. Even if you think she's been manipulated or misunderstood. Ask yourself, why was the footage buried? Why did NBC executives receive a legal cease and desist letter from Meghan Markle's legal team the very next morning? Not hours later, minutes. How did Meghan's people even know what happened so quickly? One theory. Someone tipped them off. Someone from the studio. Someone who knew what Lili was about to say before she said it. Because here's another twist. Lili Reinhart didn't just show up and drop this bomb out of nowhere. She had been planning it. Days before her appearance on Fallon, Lili had been acting increasingly withdrawn, according to friends. She canceled a dinner with her team. She unfollowed several accounts on Instagram. And, most notably, she posted a cryptic message to her private story, only visible to a few close contacts. It read, "There's something I know that I can't unknow. I thought I could bury it, but it keeps clawing back." Nobody knew what it meant at the time. Now, the meaning is clear as glass. But we still haven't answered the biggest question yet. Why would Lili Reinhart know anything about Meghan Markle's children? The two don't appear to have any public connection. Different social circles, different generations of fame, different media narratives. But dig deeper, and you'll find something very, very interesting. There is a direct connection. One person, one thread, a woman named Chelsea Wren. An elite Hollywood stylist and personal branding consultant who worked with Lili during her early Riverdale days, and who later, quite suddenly, was hired by Meghan's team in Los Angeles in the months leading up to Lilibet Diana's supposed birth announcement. Chelsea and Lili were friends once. Not close, but close enough. Close enough that when Chelsea returned from her time working with Meghan, she had changed. Jumpy, silent, guarded. And one night, according to one of Lili's confidants, Chelsea said something that made no sense at the time. She rehearses everything, even the kids, especially the kids. That line haunted Lili, because at the time, it sounded like a joke, a strange one, but nothing more. Until Fallon, until Lili saw something, until Lili knew something, until those dots connected. And that's when the weight of the secret became too much to bear. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if you knew something was fake, but the entire world believed it was real? What if you knew there was an illusion being played on a global scale? A lie so big and so intricately managed that exposing it would cost you everything. Would you speak? Would you stay silent? Or would you do what Lili did? Speak just enough to shake the ground, but not enough to get crushed by the ceiling? Because this wasn't a full expose. Not yet. This was a warning shot. This was the match struck near the gas line. And what followed would prove that Meghan's carefully controlled world might be built on something far more fragile than anyone imagined. But what came next would send this story spiraling into places even Lili wasn't prepared for. The footage wasn't supposed to leak, but it did. And when that backup angle, shaky, unedited, raw, finally hit the hands of someone outside NBC, the real chaos began. And Lili? She didn't run. She stayed quiet, unapologetic, unbothered, silent in the storm she started. Because she knew. The truth was out, and there was no putting it back. But the biggest revelation was still to come. Because what Lili saw with her own eyes, the so-called home where Archie and Lilibet were allegedly living, didn't just look like a mansion. According to her, it looked like a set, a replica, a carefully curated location designed to look like a family home, but one where the cameras were always ready. One where the children were always positioned. One where nothing felt natural. But that's a story for Chapter 1. Because the night of Fallon's show wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the unraveling, the beginning of a secret so tightly kept, even Buckingham Palace didn't dare confirm or deny it. And Lili Reinhart, she didn't just open the door. She blew it off the hinges. And what's behind it? Well, let's just say this. What comes next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Meghan, about Archie, about Lilibet, and about who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes. It started with a cigarette. Not in her mouth. Lili Reinhart doesn't smoke. But she was standing in the alley behind NBC's studio that evening, holding one between her fingers. Not lighting it. Not puffing. Just holding it. Letting it burn slowly into ash while she stared off into the cold air like someone replaying 1,000 conversations in her head. That's how a makeup assistant described her. She was out there in this long coat. No phone, no earbuds. She looked like she was about to testify in court, not go on Jimmy Fallon. And that was before she even walked through the stage door. By all accounts, Lili Reinhart was supposed to have a fun, upbeat interview that night. Her team had briefed producers on the talking points, a new indie film, an award nomination, her latest mental health podcast episode. Easy topics, familiar terrain, safe PR ground. But the moment she arrived, something was off. Her driver tried to make conversation. She didn't reply, A wardrobe assistant offered her water. She declined without looking up. And when she walked through the security doors into the green room hallway, one of the camera operators swore he saw her lips move. She wasn't talking to anyone. She was mouthing something under her breath. 5 syllables. Over and over again. Like a mantra. Like a warning. Don't let them win. Nobody knew what it meant. Not yet. Not until much, much later. And the strangest thing? Lili was early. Not fashionably early. An hour and a half early. Too early for a celebrity guest. Too early for someone who knew how these shows ran like clockwork. And instead of going into her dressing room, Lili paced. Back and forth. Up and down the hallway. Not fast. Not frantic. Just steady. Intentional. Like someone trying to build up the courage to do something that could shatter her life. Makeup artists noticed she didn't want touch-ups. Hairstylists said she kept brushing them off. Producers offered her cue cards, but she barely glanced at them. And the most unsettling moment? When Jimmy Fallon himself stopped by backstage to greet her, something he always does with his guests. Lili reportedly smiled politely, shook his hand, and said, "Thanks for letting me speak." Jimmy laughed. He thought she meant the usual interview banter. But Lili didn't laugh back. She didn't blink. She just looked him in the eye and repeated, "I mean it. Thanks for letting me speak." He left the hallway confused. But he didn't have time to dwell on it. The show was about to start. And Lili? She finally entered her dressing room, alone, and locked the door behind her. Now here's where things get even stranger. A production assistant, who had been assigned to that hallway, claimed she heard something, not shouting, not crying, but murmuring, like Lili was talking to herself, coaching herself. She got close enough to catch part of it through the door. She rehearses the story, over and over, even the labor, even the delivery. That's what she heard. And that's when she backed away, not wanting to get caught listening. Because in Hollywood, eavesdropping can cost you your job. But back in the control room, the director was already getting reports. Lili seems different tonight. She's acting like something's wrong. Do we need to delay the segment? And that's when the text messages started. One of Jimmy's senior producers received 3 messages in less than 60 seconds. All from an unknown contact, no name saved. If she says anything, cut. You know what I mean. She'll hint. Don't let her finish. Chilling, right? Even more chilling? The producer showed the text to his assistant and asked, "Do you think this is about Meghan?" The assistant responded, "It's always about Meghan." And as showtime approached, Lili emerged from her dressing room. No more pacing. No more murmuring. She was calm now. Steady. But her face? Pale. Tense. Not scared, resolved. Like someone walking toward a storm instead of away from it. She took her seat behind the stage curtain. Mic'd up. Powdered. Lit just right. And then something happened that no one expected. The floor manager bent down and whispered, "You good to go?" And Lili, without looking at him, replied, "As good as I'll ever be. I've waited long enough." What did she mean by that? What had she been waiting for? And why was tonight the night? Here's a wild detail that never made it to the press. Lili had asked for a chair without arms. Why does that matter? Because when the interview started, she kept her hands in her lap, tightly clasped, the entire time. Like she didn't trust herself to move. Like she was containing something. Like if she let go, even for a second, it would all come flooding out. And then Jimmy Fallon cracked his first joke. Something about baby fever in Hollywood, and how everyone was having kids these days. The audience laughed. Lili did not. She looked at him, tilted her head just slightly, and said, "Some people have kids. Some people use them." Silence. Fallon blinked. The audience, confused, chuckled lightly, unsure if they were supposed to laugh. Lili didn't smile, didn't blink, didn't flinch, and that's when you could see it. The flicker, the panic behind Jimmy's eyes. He knew. She wasn't joking, and neither was this moment. The producer scrambled. A cue card assistant tripped. The teleprompter froze. But Lili? She leaned forward and said, "There's a difference between being a mother and playing one." And with that, the energy in the room shifted. The illusion cracked. The floor beneath the studio audience began to metaphorically tremble. She hadn't even said Meghan's name yet. But everyone in that room knew exactly who she was talking about. And backstage? Phones were already dialing. Lawyers were already preparing. PR machines were already firing up. Because Lili Reinhart had just crossed an invisible line. A line no one in Hollywood ever dares cross. She was no longer a guest on a show. She was a whistleblower holding a match above a forest of secrets. But before the flame could ignite, before the truth could catch fire, something happened that no one saw coming. A man in a gray blazer stepped into the shadows offstage and raised his hand. The signal that meant, cut the feed. The broadcast scrambled. The transition happened, and the next segment rolled. But the question still hangs like smoke in the air. What pushed Lili to this breaking point? What did she know that the rest of us didn't? And why did she look directly into the camera, not at Jimmy, not at the audience, but into the lens itself, and say, "This isn't about hate. It's about truth. And children deserve truth." The studio froze. And Meghan's team? They went to war. But what came next would make that moment look like a mere spark compared to the wildfire that followed. It wasn't loud. That's the part people always get wrong when they try to retell what happened. They imagine Lili Reinhart stood up, raised her voice, pointed a finger, and dropped a bomb in front of a live studio audience. But the truth is far more chilling. It wasn't a scream. It was a whisper. A calm, razor-sharp whisper that cut through the laughter like a scalpel through silk. And the moment she said it, just 7 words, the room didn't erupt. It collapsed. They're not her kids. She knows. Jimmy Fallon's face drained of color. The laughter stopped mid-breath. Even the studio band fumbled their instruments in confusion. 7 words. That's all it took. But those 7 words carried the weight of 1,000 headlines, hundreds of rumors, and a secret the world had only dared to whisper, never shout. Let me paint you the moment in detail. Jimmy had just wrapped a segment about celebrity parenting fails. A lighthearted montage of stars messing up car seats and diaper changes. The audience was laughing. The mood was buoyant. And then he turned to Lili and said, "You're not a mom yet, right? But I bet you've seen all the royal baby coverage. Everyone's obsessed with Archie and Lilibet, right?" It was a softball question. A filler. Just a little air between the jokes and the real conversation. But Lili didn't smile. Didn't nod. Didn't play along. Instead, she lowered her gaze, took a slow breath, and leaned in slightly. And then, without theatrics, without emphasis, she said, "They're not her kids. She knows. No names. No accusation. Just 7 words." But everyone knew exactly who she meant. Because Lili didn't need to say Meghan's name. The subtext had already screamed it. In the silence that followed, Jimmy Fallon did something very few people noticed. He looked, not at Lili, not at the band, not at the camera, but offstage, past the lights, toward the control booth, toward the producer's desk, and his eyes weren't asking for guidance. They were pleading for someone to intervene, pleading for this to not be happening, pleading for the crisis team to activate before it was too late. And behind the scenes, panic. One producer stood up so quickly he knocked over his laptop. Another grabbed a walkie and hissed, "Cut camera 2. Cut it now." An assistant rushed toward the curtain with a cue card clutched in both hands, as if it could shield them from what was about to happen. But the real moment, the one that truly cracked the walls, came 3 seconds later. Because Fallon tried to recover. He smiled. Awkwardly. Tried to turn it into a joke. "Okay. Wow. You've been reading those tabloid forums again, huh?" He chuckled. The audience chuckled with him, cautiously. But Lili didn't. She didn't even blink. She looked directly at Jimmy, and by extension, into every living room watching across America, and said, "You know it's true. We all do." That was the moment Jimmy stopped smiling. Not the fake smile. Not the showman smile. But the one his face naturally forms when he's trying to survive something awful. He laughed again, a nervous, hollow sound, and reached for his mug. But his hand was shaking. His fingers clinked against the ceramic edge, and the camera caught it. Millions of viewers saw it. It was the sound of a man suddenly realizing he was standing in the middle of a minefield, and the person sitting next to him had just lit the fuse. Meanwhile, back in the booth, chaos. Switch to pre-roll. Do we have a musical bumper ready? Black out the screen if she says one more thing. But Lili didn't say anything else. Not right away. She sat back, calmly, folded her hands, looked toward the crowd, and then, ever so softly, she said, "One day, those children will grow up. And when they ask for the truth, who's going to answer them?" Silence. You could hear a pin drop. Some say you could even hear someone gasp in the back row. And at that exact moment, One of the studio's floor managers signaled the stage lights to dim, prematurely. The cue was clear. In the segment. Now, Fallon quickly launched into a scripted plug about Lili's upcoming project. His voice too fast. His energy too manic. His hands tapping the desk like a drummer counting down to a crash. Lili smiled now. But it wasn't the kind of smile anyone expected. It wasn't smug. It wasn't satisfied. It was sad. And that sadness, that quiet resignation, that's what made the moment feel real. More real than anything anyone had seen from Hollywood in years. And viewers noticed. The internet exploded within seconds. Clips spread. Screenshots went viral. Hashtags began to trend. Hashtag what did Lili say? Hashtag Fallon freeze. Hashtag not her kids. And then, NBC pulled the episode. Not just the clip, the entire episode. Gone from YouTube. Pulled from Hulu. Removed from Peacock. Gone. Like it never happened. But it had. People saw it. People recorded it. And people started digging. They went back. Analyzed the footage. Slowed it down. Read her lips. Compared her expression to other interviews. And then a second bombshell dropped. A behind-the-scenes photo surfaced. Posted, then quickly deleted by a junior crew member. It showed Lili, moments before stepping on stage, with her head bowed and a folded piece of paper clutched in her palm. Zoom in. Enhance. You can barely make it out, but scrawled in quick, panicked handwriting are the words. The home isn't real. The timeline doesn't match. That's when things really spiraled. Online sleuths started comparing Meghan's publicly stated birth dates, with flight records, with hospital staff schedules, with paparazzi photos that had been reversed, blurred, or redacted. Questions started piling up. Theories started forming. But no one could confirm anything, because the one person who might have known the truth had just risked everything to whisper it. And her name was Lili Reinhart. But why her? Why this show? Why this night? To understand that, you need to go back. Back before the Fallon interview. Back to a conversation between Lili and someone from Meghan's past. Someone who saw too much. Someone who told Lili something no actress should ever know about another public figure's children. And that person was the very reason Lili stood backstage that night, staring at a cigarette she never intended to smoke. Because once she heard what she heard, she couldn't unhear it. And what she did next wasn't just brave. It was dangerous. But what came after the show, the threats, the smear campaigns, the terrifying message left on her car windshield, made it clear. This wasn't just a celebrity rumor anymore. This was a war. And Lili Reinhart had just fired the first shot. It was less than 3 minutes after Lili Reinhart uttered the 7 words that cracked open a vault of secrets. 3 minutes. That's all it took for the panic to reach NBC's control room, for phones to start ringing, for a decades-old protocol, one that was meant only for technical disasters or on-air threats to national security, to be activated. It was known internally as Code Blackout, and it was never meant to be used on a celebrity interview. Until now. But what could possibly cause a top-tier television network to treat a soft-spoken statement from a Hollywood actress like a live grenade? Let's rewind those 3 minutes, because they matter more than anyone realizes. The moment Lili whispered, "They're not her kids," she knows. Jimmy Fallon flinched. He looked toward the camera crew. He knew it couldn't be edited out. It was already out there. And that's when Jason Withers, Fallon's lead segment producer, stood up in the booth and uttered one word. Now. That word triggered a ripple of commands. Someone pressed a black button underneath the control panel. A button so rarely touched that it was covered with a plastic safety latch. Someone else disabled the live-to-tape feed and began isolating Lili's segment into a secure digital locker. And then, within seconds, the call went out to the NBC legal team. But what most people didn't know, the first call didn't go to legal. It went to a private number, a direct line, not NBC internal. Not a publicist, but a personal liaison connected to the Sussex PR operation in California. Because NBC knew what Lili's sentence had unleashed. It wasn't just a PR problem. It was a potential international relations nightmare. The Markle brand, especially the narrative surrounding Archie and Lilibet, wasn't just protected by contracts. It was protected by alliances, by money, by a media firewall that very few dared to even touch. And now? Lili Reinhart had walked straight through it on NBC's stage, which meant the network wasn't just in trouble. It was exposed. According to an anonymous source who worked in the edit bay that evening, the chaos was unlike anything they'd ever seen. "I've worked here for 11 years, the editor said. "We've had guests storm off, curse on live air, even get drunk during rehearsals. But I've never seen an entire segment vanish into the vault before the guest even left the building." That's right. Before Lili could even take her mic off, the segment had already been quarantined. How? Because NBC has a security protocol called mirror archiving, a system designed to create multiple simultaneous backups in the event of a tech failure or emergency recall. It records every camera angle individually. It tracks facial data for promotional stills. And it stores everything, raw and unfiltered, in a hidden drive partitioned away from public access. It's not stored in the usual cloud. It's not stored in the building's local servers. It's stored in what staff refer to as the icebox, a digital cold storage repository where only 3 executives hold access keys. That's where Lili's segment went. Into the icebox, under full blackout. And just to be safe, NBC issued a full production lockdown on the episode. Every editor who had touched it, or was scheduled to, received a silent email titled, "Red Notice, Do Not Access." In the body, just one line. All footage involving the 7:46 p.m. segment is now classified under Breach Protection Policy 9A. This is not a request. Which begged the question, what exactly did NBC think they were protecting? A slip of the tongue? A celebrity overstepping? A legal nightmare? Or was it something more? What if someone at NBC already knew this moment might happen? Let's go back just 24 hours earlier. According to internal memos leaked to a well-known media watchdog blog, one producer, Mira Denton, had flagged Lili's guest profile as non-standard. The reason? Lili had declined to submit her talking points in advance, a move that almost no celebrity of her level ever makes. Fallon's team typically receives a list of approved topics, anecdotes, even jokes, all vetted by PR managers. But Lili? She submitted nothing. When asked for bullet points, she said, "I want to keep it spontaneous." Mira Denton, sensing something odd, made a note in the guest log. Potential deviation. Monitor for topic breach. And here's where it gets even more damning. That log was accessed later, during the lockdown. Not by NBC, but by a third-party monitor connected to a private crisis management firm in Santa Monica. A firm reportedly hired by, you guessed it, Meghan Markle's team. So now, the situation wasn't just locked down. It was being watched. From the outside. From people with a lot to lose. And from that moment forward, the instructions were clear. No public uploads. No YouTube previews. No highlight reels. Nothing. The Fallon YouTube channel posted clips from every other guest that night, except one. Lili's episode was scrubbed. Entire thumbnails vanished. Fan-uploaded clips were hit with takedown notices citing defamation risk, copyright breach, and broadcast integrity violation. A triple strike that nearly no content gets hit with unless ordered from the top. And still, they couldn't stop it completely. Because someone inside the building made a copy. Not the full broadcast, just a 94-second handheld clip. From behind the curtain. From a crew member. On a personal device. A clip that caught the moment Lili leaned in and whispered the sentence. And when that clip leaked, it blew a hole through the digital vault they had so carefully tried to lock. Overnight, it was on TikTok. On Twitter. On Reddit. On encrypted Telegram threads. On underground media servers. And no matter how many cease and desist orders flew across the internet, no matter how many accounts were banned or hashtags were blocked, the truth had already escaped. NBC's panic wasn't about what Lili had said. It was about what they failed to prevent. And let's be brutally honest. Networks don't move this fast over rumors. They don't lock archives over awkward interviews. They don't involve legal teams, brand managers, and crisis firms unless someone told them to. Unless they're protecting more than just a reputation. They're protecting an illusion. An illusion that, once cracked, can't be uncracked. But here's the part that hasn't been made public. Not until now. Inside the icebox, the cold storage vault, there's a transcription system that indexes every word spoken on air, even in off-mic moments. That system flagged an off-camera phrase, said just as the segment was ending. A phrase Lili said under her breath as Jimmy thanked her for a wonderful chat. She didn't say, "Thanks for having me." She didn't say, "Glad to be here." She said, "You can't keep this hidden forever." And then she walked off stage. Not hurried, not scared, just steady, just done. NBC didn't just panic. They knew they'd failed to contain a moment that wasn't supposed to happen. And now, the eyes of the world were watching. But the next move wouldn't come from NBC. It would come from someone else. Someone who had been waiting for a moment like this to strike back. And when they did, they would reveal a piece of evidence that would send this story hurtling into uncharted territory. Because the footage wasn't the only thing hidden in the vault. There was something else. Something even more explosive. And what came next would make Lili's whisper feel like a gentle breeze compared to the Category 5 storm about to hit. If NBC executives lost sleep over anything that night, it wasn't what Lili Reinhart said. It was that someone else had recorded it. Because no matter how powerful a network thinks it is, no matter how quickly they can erase digital traces, redact footage, or scrub transcripts, they can't control what they can't see. And someone, no one knew who, not at first, had kept their phone rolling behind the curtain. A single clip, shaky, unfiltered, leaked from deep inside NBC's studio walls. It was just under 94 seconds long, but it was enough. Enough to capture everything. Lili's whisper, Fallon's stunned silence, the panic rippling through the crew. Enough to prove that the moment had actually happened. Not exaggerated, not misunderstood, not blown out of proportion, but real, raw, undeniable. And the question that instantly followed was chilling. Who recorded it? And more importantly, why hadn't NBC found them before it went public? But before we get there, let's rewind. Because this moment didn't start when the clip leaked. It started 3 days earlier. A camera assistant named Milo Fisk, 26, was scheduled to run behind-the-scenes b-roll for a Fallon promotional piece. Not unusual. He'd done it before. Small camera. No rig. Just him, his Canon DSLR, and a directive. Get the candid stuff. Laughs. Backstage nerves. Talent walking on and off. You know the drill. But Milo had a bad habit. A rebellious one. He always rolled longer than he was supposed to. Sometimes to capture bloopers. Sometimes for editing options. And sometimes just to keep his version of the truth. "I don't trust what gets cut," he once told a fellow crewmate. The best stuff never makes the air. And this time, he didn't stop rolling when Lili walked off stage. He didn't stop rolling when the stage manager screamed to cut the lights. He didn't stop rolling when 2 executives stormed in from stage right, gesturing wildly. He filmed it. All of it. From behind a velvet curtain, near the curtain rail, partially obscured but with a direct line of sight to Lili, Fallon, and the crew scrambling in chaos. He caught Lili's face, not angry, not smug, but heavy, weighted by the fallout she knew she'd caused. Fallon's hands, still trembling, gripping his mug like a man trying not to drown. The words, captured by the ambient mic, barely audible, but clean enough when isolated by audio tools. The original recording file was titled segment_746_L Reinhardt_altangle.mov. But the clip that eventually surfaced? It wasn't uploaded by Milo. Not directly, which raised even more questions. Because when the leak hit Reddit on a Saturday morning, it came from an anonymous account with no history, no avatar, and no comments. Just a title. Fallon's eyes say it all. Lili's truth gets cut. And in that moment, everything changed. For NBC, for Meghan, and for Lili Reinhart. Let's talk about what the recording actually revealed. Because it wasn't just the sentence, "They're not her kids. She knows." It was what followed. In the clip, after Jimmy tries to joke it off, there's a pause. Only about 4 seconds. But what Lili says next is far more damning. Her voice dips low. She's looking offstage. She knows they're scrambling. And she says, "I saw the travel logs, the handler schedules, the prearranged photo sessions. I know what I saw." Those 3 sentences, they sent the internet into a frenzy. Travel logs? Handler schedules? Prearranged photo sessions? What did that mean? What travel logs was she referring to? Was she talking about Archie and Lilibet's alleged movements between California and the UK? Was she referencing the widely debated "where are the children" conspiracy that had simmered beneath the surface of online discussions for years? And the handler, who was that? That phrase ignited a firestorm. People began combing through paparazzi photos, social media metadata, and Meghan's carefully curated Archwell releases. Clips were analyzed. Photo shadows were matched. Public appearances were cross-referenced with known flight manifests and royal press bulletins. And it didn't take long for Reddit threads and X, formerly Twitter, sleuths to stumble upon the May 2023 anomaly, a 72-hour window in which Meghan and Harry were photographed with both children at a private event in Santa Barbara, at the exact same time that a security log indicated no minors had entered or exited the property. Was it a mistake? A misprint? Or had Lili seen something behind the curtain? A document? A schedule? A script? No one could confirm it. But no one could deny it, either. And this clip, the 94 seconds that Milo Fisk had filmed, wasn't just evidence of a statement. It was evidence of intent. Lili Reinhart had walked into NBC's studio that night with a plan. She didn't stumble. She didn't slip. She delivered. And she did it knowing full well the consequences. And perhaps the most haunting moment in the clip, one that never aired, never hit Fallon's broadcast, and never made the network cut, was the way Lili looked toward the crowd after saying her piece. She didn't look guilty. She looked sad, like someone who had spent too long carrying a truth she wished she didn't know. And that's what made the clip feel real. Not because of the audio, not because of the words, but because of her eyes. Unblinking, tired, done. She had risked everything. Her career, her image, her silence, and she knew there was no going back. And Milo? The one who captured it all? He didn't speak publicly. Not for weeks. Until, quietly, in a now-deleted post on a locked account, he wrote, "They didn't want the world to see it. So I showed it. Let the truth speak." And then he vanished. Deactivated. Disappeared. Gone. And NBC? They went into overdrive. Private investigators. NDA enforcement. Digital tracing teams. Internal audits of every crew member who had been near the segment. But they never confirmed who leaked the video. And they never addressed Lili's comments. Not once. Not publicly. Not even in whispers. Because the leak meant the genie was out of the bottle. You can't unsee it. You can't unhear it. And once the world saw the clip, once they saw Lili's face, Fallon's panic, the crew scrambling, the truth didn't need to be proven anymore. It just needed to be believed. And millions did. But what's even more shocking? That clip, the one everyone saw, it wasn't the whole thing. Because Milo hadn't recorded 94 seconds. He'd recorded over 4 minutes. And the rest of that footage? It wasn't leaked. Not yet. But someone has it. And in that unreleased portion, Lili says something else. Something she whispered as she stood from the couch. Something that only one person backstage confirmed hearing. A single, devastating sentence that goes deeper than rumors, deeper than conspiracy. A sentence that suggests Archie and Lilibet may not have lived with Meghan at all. And that's where this story turns from explosive to catastrophic. Here's the part of the story that most people overlook. Not because it's hidden, but because it's subtle. Invisible until you know where to look. Because on the surface, Lili Reinhart and Meghan Markle live in two entirely different worlds. One built on CW teen dramas and indie film circles. The other, forged in royal pageantry and billion-dollar branding. They don't run in the same parties. They don't attend the same events. They don't even follow each other on social media. So how? In all logic, could Lili Reinhart know anything about Meghan Markle's children? That was the question journalists, critics, and Markle defenders kept asking. As if the absence of a red carpet photo between them was proof of innocence. As if Hollywood weren't an industry fueled by whispers, private clubs, overlapping teams, and very, very thin walls. Because while Lili and Meghan don't appear connected, they are. And the name that links them is Chelsea Wren. Not a celebrity, not a politician, not royalty, but the kind of person who floats effortlessly between A-list worlds. A stylist, a brand consultant, a fixer. Chelsea Wren is one of those people in Hollywood everyone knows, and no one really knows. She's never in front of the camera, but she's always near the people who are. And at one point or another, Chelsea styled both Lili Reinhart and Meghan Markle. But here's where it gets weird. Chelsea worked with Lili for nearly 2 years, from 2018 through mid-2020. She styled her for premieres, helped build her post-Riverdale public image, was even said to have flown to Canada twice when Lili was filming a secret project. They weren't just business partners. They were friends. Close enough that Lili once referred to Chelsea in an old Instagram caption as The woman who makes me feel powerful when I'm at my most anxious. But in 2021, Chelsea disappeared from Lili's public orbit. No announcement. No farewell. No cryptic unfollowing. Just gone. And within 6 months, she was quietly added to the styling team for Meghan Markle's Montecito appearances. Now, this switch alone wouldn't raise eyebrows. Stylists rotate all the time. But the timing was off. Because Chelsea's shift happened during the exact months that Meghan was allegedly preparing for Lilibet Diana's birth. And if you ask anyone in the industry, they'll tell you. When someone like Chelsea gets brought in last minute, it's not about hair or makeup. It's about control. Narrative control. Image consistency. Brand insulation. Chelsea's role was never confirmed publicly, but insiders at Archie hinted she helped coordinate presentation aesthetics during the virtual press releases. She was seen entering the gated Montecito property multiple times, once during a heavily guarded weekend said to be off-limits to outside staff, and once during a photo shoot that, according to metadata leaks, wasn't taken at the listed date. Now here's where Lili comes back into the picture. In late 2022, months before the Fallon incident, Lili was spotted at a small dinner party in West Hollywood. A no press, no photos, VIP-only rooftop affair. Several guests later leaked fragments of conversation, but one detail remained consistent. Lili left early, visibly upset, pale, shaken. Why? Because Chelsea Wren was also there. And according to one anonymous witness who claims to have overheard them talking, Lili confronted her. Politely at first, then more intensely. The question she asked? Simple, direct, devastating. Why did you lie to me about the kids? Chelsea didn't respond. She stood up, walked to the bar, never returned to the table. And from that moment on, Lili Reinhart stopped speaking Chelsea's name, stopped working with her, scrubbed her Instagram archives, declined interviews where Chelsea's name was mentioned. But the fallout didn't stop there. Because one of Lili's closest friends, a wellness coach and former assistant, told a reporter under anonymity that in the weeks that followed, Lili became obsessed with fact-checking timelines. She made spreadsheets, downloaded press clippings, even contacted someone who had worked at the private security firm used during Lilibet Diana's christening. Why? Because something Chelsea said, or didn't say, had confirmed a suspicion Lili had carried for months. That Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana were not being raised like other children. That their lives, or at least their public presence, was being carefully staged. And not by accident, by design. And Chelsea? Chelsea was allegedly one of the designers. But there's more. A second source, an anonymous email sent to a gossip blog 3 days after Lili's Fallon appearance, claimed that Chelsea once confided in someone that none of it was real. Here's what the email said. She said the room was a set, that the nursery was fake, that the children were flown in for a 72-hour window to record footage and photos. She said there were doubles, contracts, people who played parents. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't laughing. The blog dismissed the email as fan fiction, until they matched the sender's IP to a location just 6 blocks from Archie's PR office. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe Chelsea wasn't the only one cracking under pressure. Because when you carry a lie this big, someone always breaks. And it might have been Lili's confrontation that triggered Chelsea's collapse. Think about it. You style a royal. You're part of a global illusion. You sign NDAs that threaten your entire career. And then a woman you used to help, someone you trusted, looks you in the eye and asks, "Why did you lie to me about the kids?" That doesn't go away. That haunts you. And according to another anonymous post from an industry forum, Chelsea started canceling gigs shortly after that night, stopped taking new clients, disappeared from award season. And then, 1 month later, she moved out of California. Her LinkedIn now lists her as consulting in private markets abroad. No press, no goodbye, just vanished. But Lili? She stayed. And she didn't just stew in silence. She gathered. She questioned. And when she got that Fallon invite, she didn't hesitate. Because something had shifted in her, something deeper than curiosity. It was guilt. Guilt that she'd been adjacent to the secret. Guilt that she'd been styled by the same hands crafting the illusion. Guilt that she might have stayed quiet too long. So when the moment came, when Fallon mentioned Archie and Lilibet, Lili didn't blink. She didn't joke. She didn't pretend. She delivered. And the world has never looked at her the same way since. But the Chelsea Wren connection? that was just the beginning. Because soon after the clip leaked, Lili received a message. No name, no return address, just a black envelope. Inside, one sheet of paper, one sentence. We all know the truth. Stay quiet, or they'll make you disappear too. And next to it, a photo of Lilibet, smiling, holding a balloon. But the reflection in the window behind her wasn't Meghan. It was a stranger. There's something about a whispered truth that hits harder than a shouted lie. It doesn't slam you across the face. It crawls under your skin. It stays there. It itches when no one else notices. It ruins your sleep. And when Lili Reinhart heard Chelsea Wren's whispered confession, the one that started it all, she didn't react with shock. She reacted with silence. Because that's what happens when something you've suspected for too long is finally confirmed. And the confession? It was about Archie, not the stories we've been told, not the smiling photos, not the stage park playdates and birthday balloons. It was about the absence of truth behind all of that. The moment it happened was unplanned. Late one night, during fittings for a high-profile Hollywood charity gala, Lili was being prepped to walk the carpet solo. Chelsea, who at the time was still working with her, was pinning the hem of a cream-colored gown. The room was quiet, just the two of them. Low lights, the soft sound of scissors snipping thread, and a playlist of old sod songs humming in the background. That's when Chelsea paused. She looked up at Lili, face blank, but eyes tired. Really tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep. And she said, "You know what's weird? Meghan never lets anyone pick clothes for her during the final weeks of pregnancy." Lili raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Chelsea continued. She'd email references, specific cuts, sizes, photos, but no fittings, no face-to-face, not even Zoom. Said she was nesting, said she needed privacy. But you know what's strange? Lili waited, and Chelsea whispered, "The pieces never matched the belly." Lili blinked. Chelsea stood up, pulled a rack aside, checked to make sure the assistants weren't nearby. Then she lowered her voice even more. "I was told to pin all maternity dresses with double padding, removable inserts." Lili stared at her. Chelsea sighed. She didn't need them, but she wanted them. Always at the belly. Always. Silence. That's when Lili asked the question. Was she really pregnant? Chelsea didn't answer immediately. She folded a scarf, smoothed it twice, placed it gently on the table. Then she looked Lili in the eyes and said, "I don't know, but I know this. I was there the day after Archie was born. I brought a wrap dress. The same dress we were told she wanted for her first post-birth photo. She wasn't there. And when I asked the assistant where she was, she stopped." Lili leaned in. "What did she say?" Chelsea looked away. "She said Meghan hadn't arrived yet. But there was a baby. Already swaddled. Already staged. Already swaddled. Already staged. Let that sink in. A new mother not present. A child already dressed, swaddled, placed in the light. No hospital smell. No new mom chaos. Just stillness. A photo op waiting to happen." Chelsea said it felt wrong. Too quiet. Too rehearsed. Too produced. And when Meghan finally entered, she wasn't in recovery wear. She wasn't exhausted. She wasn't glowing. She was brisk, businesslike, focused. And her first question? Did the light bounce off his skin properly? Not how does he look? Not did he smile? Not even is he okay? Just lighting. Optics. Framing. Chelsea said that moment never left her. And here's the part that truly broke Lili. Chelsea said she never once saw Meghan hold Archie during the first 2 hours of that day. He was passed between two assistants, held for 3 takes, photographed from 7 angles, but never once, not once, cradled in her arms. Lili pressed her. Could she have been avoiding stress? Exhausted? Chelsea shook her head. No. She was managing. She was directing. She was already preparing the captions. Now ask yourself, what kind of mother does that? Better yet, what kind of mother can do that? And if she wasn't the mother, who was? But Chelsea's confession didn't stop there. There was another moment. A private one. Months later. During what was supposed to be Archie's first birthday shoot, Chelsea had been rehired by a secondary team to assist with wardrobe choices for a casual, at-home setup. Books, balloons, a cake smash. All designed to appear organic, authentic, real. Except Chelsea told Lili that none of it felt real. The house didn't look lived in. The nursery was sparse, almost too clean. The toys were brand new, unboxed minutes before the cameras rolled. And Archie? Chelsea said he didn't respond to Meghan the way a 1-year-old responds to his mother. No reaching, no clinging, no familiarity. She described it as watching two strangers in a photo. And then, the moment that changed everything. After the shoot, Meghan left the room to take a call. Chelsea remained, folding props and returning accessories to the travel cases. That's when she overheard one of the assistants, someone she'd seen around before, mutter under her breath, "All right, let's prep him to go back." Chelsea looked up. Back where? The assistant didn't answer. She just smiled, tight-lipped, mechanical, and took the child out the side door. Lily was speechless when she heard that part. "Back where?" she whispered. Chelsea looked at her. "I don't know." But it wasn't to Meghan. And just like that, the story shifted. It wasn't just about a padded belly anymore. It wasn't just about clothing or lighting. It was about the possibility, the terrifying possibility. That Archie was a prop. That his existence, at least publicly, was curated, coordinated, and possibly contracted. And Chelsea? She'd been part of it. Not because she wanted to be, but because she didn't know what it really was. Not until it was too late. Her voice cracked when she said it. "I thought I was dressing a royal. I didn't know I was dressing a lie." And that, right there, was the moment Lily changed. The moment guilt set in. The moment she stopped being just another Hollywood starlet with opinions and became a woman holding a secret she never asked to carry. Because once you hear something like that, you can't unhear it. And Chelsea? She made Lily promise not to tell anyone. But secrets don't stay buried in this town. Especially not the kind that involve royal bloodlines, hidden contracts, and a child whose birth certificate has never been publicly confirmed by the hospital that allegedly delivered him. And the worst part? That wasn't the only confession Chelsea made. Because she knew something about Lilibet, too. Something even darker. And when she finally told Lily the full truth about the second child, it changed everything. Because it didn't just challenge the idea that Meghan was their mother. It questioned whether the children were ever meant to be seen at all. If what Chelsea Wren confessed about Archie was enough to keep Lili Reinhart up at night, then what she whispered next about Lilibet Diana was what finally broke her. Because if Archie's presence felt staged, Lilibet's existence felt fabricated. Let's be blunt for a second. From the very beginning, everything about Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor felt off. Her name, a direct nod to Queen Elizabeth's private childhood nickname, raised more than a few eyebrows. It was presented as a tribute, yet Buckingham Palace was allegedly not informed of the name choice until after it went public. Then came the birth announcement. A cold press release. No family photo. No hospital steps. No public appearance. No car seat shuffle. No wave from a glowing mother in floral prints. No proud father clumsily adjusting the carrier. Just words. Digital ones. Followed by a single image 6 months later. Let that sit with you. 6 months. In royal history, that kind of gap is unprecedented. Even for private royals. Especially when the child in question is still technically in the line of succession, albeit now buried behind a political wall of controversy. And for Lili Reinhart, that silence, that absence, was the crack in the wall. She hadn't thought much of it at first. She, like most of the world, assumed Lilibet was being protected from the public eye. That Harry and Meghan were taking a more California-style approach to parenting. No big reveal. No spectacle. Just peace. But Chelsea's second confession blew that theory wide open. It happened 1 month after the back where moment, the day she saw Archie taken out a side door, destination unknown. Lily and Chelsea met again, this time not in a fitting room, but in a car. A parked car. Windows up. No phones. No digital trail. And Chelsea's hands were shaking. She handed Lily a USB drive. "This doesn't leave your pocket. Ever. If they know I gave it to you." She trailed off. Lily didn't ask what they meant. She already knew. Inside the drive, a folder, titled Project Pearl. Inside that folder, 2 zip files, 4 high-res images, 1 PDF transcript, 1 audio note recorded on a shaky phone mic, and a single document labeled Draft 1, Baptism Schedule, L. That was the first red flag, because Chelsea hadn't been involved in the christening. Not officially, but somehow, she had a copy of the schedule. And it didn't look like any religious ceremony Lily had ever seen. No family names listed. No official title from the Church of England. No location header. No baptismal certificate number. Just 4 bulleted tasks. 10 a.m. Subject arrival. 10:30 a.m. Lighting test plus wardrobe adjustments. 11:15 a.m. Media capture segment. Interior. 12 p.m. Meal break. Hold subject in warmth room. Hold subject? Not child. Not baby. Not even Lilibet. Subject. What kind of baptism uses production terms? Lily felt sick, but it was the audio note that confirmed her worst fears.